Hello, testing, testing, testing. This is video 756, and this is the 4th of July on 2021. And I'm not exactly sure where this video is going to go, but I feel the need to make it. And it's my life, trans woman at middle age, fits with the channel. Uh, but it's going to deal with the 4th of July a little bit because I've had and I've also noticed amongst my friends. Excuse me, I have a kitty cat. Hi. Um, some trepidation this year. Some trepidation this year. It's a little bit of uneasiness this year. And I think off the bat, some full disclosure here. For the last 3, 4 years previous, um, on the 4th of July, I had, well, maybe let's go a little further back than that. As a child, way back when, I loved the 4th of July, excuse me. This is my son, Bucky. I love the 4th of July. I love the 4th of July. I look forward to it. Every year I used to spend my summers at my grandparents' farm in Mississippi, a little town right outside of Bruce, Mississippi. Probably it's grown up since then, but at the time it was, a one stoplight town with a Piggly Wiggly and whatnot. But I loved the 4th of July, and I always spent it at my grandparents' farm, like I said, in Mississippi. And it was wonderful, and that it was like the summer holiday that I looked forward to. We would drive uh, into Tupelo, Mississippi, usually, or a big city, relatively speaking, and we would go to the firework place, which is just rows and rows and rows of black cat fireworks and things that shoot up in the air and cones and everything. I think stereotypically, as a little boy, you just love playing with fire. It doesn't mean little girls can't, whatnot, whatnot. Please pardon the binary example. But I mean, it was like the thing that I really enjoyed doing. And I think kids in general, the way we're raised, you know, we maybe don't necessarily know the history. We only know what we're taught in school. 4th of July, Independence Day, celebrate the colonists, you know, signing the Declaration of Independence. Hooray, hooray. Everything's cool. And that's pretty much all you know. At least that's all that I knew as a little young lad. And it was just a fun time. It was a fun time on the farm. My grandparents in the middle of nowhere. Um, and I got to light the fireworks. I think again, that's the thing as a kid, you love that. You know, uh, no, they didn't have the little long lighters when I was a kid. So we had these little what they call punks, which basically looks like an incense stick that you light, and then it kind of goes out and you kind of blow on it, and it's just warm enough to light the wick on a firework, and then you run like hell. When you're a little kid, you're like, run like. So the 4th of July was just this fun thing that I just really enjoyed. And then as I got a little bit older and I was still visiting my grandparents, it was kind of the milestone that summer was kind of coming to an end. Um, a couple more weeks and I was headed back to Florida to be with my folks. And it was kind of like a somber moment or milestone. Well, half the summer is gone or whatnot. And I didn't really think about it much as I grew a little older, and I didn't do fireworks. Um, After my folks got separated, we would spend our 4th of July, my dad and I, we would go up to a lake in the middle of Florida with my uncle and my aunt, and we would do fireworks again, kind of on the lake. And it had some of the same elements, but I wasn't as too keen on lighting the fireworks. It was just fun to watch. And then as I had my own child, and it was fun when she was little, to light the fireworks. And I don't think she ever really wanted to light the fireworks. But again, it was, that father, daughter, mm, whatever. And things were really cool. And as I got a little older, I was like, well, this is kind of getting not repetitive, but a little boring. After the fifth or sixth cone, it just gets very repetitive. And when the children aren't as into it as much as they were, you know, and especially when money's a little bit tight, if you're going through a divorce or whatnot, you start to look at, okay, groceries for the week or fireworks, you know. So it kind of became somewhat, not necessarily a nuisance, but it wasn't as much fun as it once was. And I'm happy to say that my daughter and I currently, we started a tradition then that we kind of get our chairs and we go out front in our apartment complex, our duplex complex here, and we watch the other families do their fireworks. And they have little kids and they get excited. We get that excitement somewhat from watching it. But kind of back to the PTSD, about 4 years ago, um, there was it was President Trump's first year, and kind of, immediately in the administration within the first week, they took down all the references of transgender and LGBT stuff off the White House website. And as time progressed, it kind of things began to surface of what the Trump administration was doing to undermine LGBT rights, and the Justice Department under them was, undermining, just, really trying to make life hell again, um, for transgender folk and LGBT folk and whatever. And it became very hard over the years that followed. You know, the the there were so many times you would see President Trump rape an American flag. He would walk up to a flag and molest it, and it became somewhat of a icky thing. I didn't want to see an American flag because it reminded me of him. And what I kind of call the holy trinity of the Republican Party, an American flag, an unborn fetus, an unborn child, and a gun. Those things kind of go together. And you know, it just the 4th of July became, you know, patriotism, um, was really just fascism, you know. And I didn't want to celebrate what this dickhead in the White House was doing, who was taking away my rights and hurting my friends. And again, what we know now, just really fighting against equality for women, equality from various marginalized minorities, Asian Americans, African Americans, just terrible stuff that was going on. And so, like I said, kind of like PTSD now, um, you know, when I see the American flag, or the other day, President Biden had some stuff. Uh, Friday, there was like two or three different things. And if you haven't seen it, there's a naturalization ceremony where 20 some odd people are sworn in, having just gotten their, given the citizens, and they say the Pledge of Allegiance for the first time. And, you know, there's such a different push, or a different take on immigration and everything under President Biden, in the same way as the LGBT. We just finished Pride Month, such a positive, you know, change of direction, and we're supporting you. We got your back. The Department of Justice is starting to uh, tackle some of the anti-trans stuff in the states. And I think in just a couple days ago, the Supreme Court kind of solidified some of the stuff under Title IX about gender and what states can and cannot do against trans youth and everything. I mean, we're really under, if this was a car trip, the car is being turned. The direction is changing. Our moral compass needle is, it's aligning to what's right and fair and equal and everything again. And so, um, like I said, I just still have a bit of a cringe that is kind of unfair. Um, it's abuse, you know. Maybe if there's enough of us that get together, we can sue the Trump administration for mental abuse. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so this week, where I work, we have a number of. Um, it's kind of like a chat group. Probably what maybe would be Facebook Messenger, but on a much larger scale. The program is called Microsoft Teams, and you can send a message to like groups of people in your company, and one account is like company wide. And the post was of an American flag and some fireworks, and it said, we wish all our associates a very happy 4th of July, and look forward to having Monday off and everything. And people posted under that, kind of like a comment on a Facebook page, oh, I love my country! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Another person posted, America, home of the brave, land of the free and home of the brave. And someone else posted, America, happy birthday, America. Isn't it great for all the opportunities we all have and that you've given us? And, you know, it kind of began to sound like some of the fascist rhetoric that I heard 2 or 3 years ago or last year at this time when the President of the United States was standing below Mount Rushmore talking about equality and how great America was. And you're just sitting there going, wait a minute, you're having this ceremony on Indian Native American territory that was taken away illegally from them. It was seized, and then you desecrated their holy site, you know, uh, all in the name of patriotism and other things. And then, the indigenous tribes there, were like pleading, please do not have 4th of July here. We do not want it here. This is our land. This is our holy site. You are raping us again. And people were like, oh no, it's the 4th of July. Yay, America. And, it just had some bad vibes to it, which I guess kind of is like PTSD. You see something in that past kind of comes up. And so this year, like I said, it's been such a U turn, such a change of direction. And my friend Dawn posted on her Facebook page something to the effect of, I just applied for my passport, to change, to update, make my gender marker accurate, blah, 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 blah. And this is a newly acquired freedom, you know. Uh, but this is something that's just now gotten, and how much more work do we have to go? And can I celebrate? And that's kind of something that I've been feeling like for the last week, in light of things that have kind of surfaced with the massacre um, that happened. And I'm sorry, I'm already forgotten where it happened, and that's poo poo on me. But where black communities were, rioted and razed and torched, and I want to say Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the number of communities, black communities, that over the years have been sacrificed and flooded to make recreational lakes, basically for white people to go and vacation and have fun at. You know, our nation just has this history of just screwing people over. And if you object to that, you're somehow seen as unpatriotic or less of an American. Things that, again, under the previous fascist regime, people would say, America, love it or leave it. If you don't like it, leave. You know, which is, of course, kind of totally against the idea of freedom of speech. I may not like what you believe, but I will definitely fight for your right to say what you think, as long as you don't hurt other people or me by it. But you know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's like this time I want to kind of celebrate, but I also kind of feel there needs to be an acknowledgement of how much work we have left to do. And I don't think that detracts from being an American citizen or having a love. Like I said on the post at my company, I love my country. You know, okay, well, good. How do you feel about systemic racism? How do you feel about white guilt? You know, how do you feel about the Equality Act? You know, things that, again, under the previous regime, you were admonished for bringing those things up. And I don't think you would now. In the last week, we're going to the Olympics here in a couple months, or less than a month now. And one of the Olympians, after they passed their trials to go to the Olympics, they had a national anthem or they did something, and the athlete turned their back on the podium, kind of as a sign of protest. And the reporter at the White House on Friday said, Mr. President, do you think that's an acceptable behavior for someone who represents the United States of America? And the president was very quick to say, I value uh, the ability in our country of our citizens to speak their mind and to silently protest. And isn't that part of our freedom of speech? You know, and so that was like, egg on my face. But again, like I said, we kind of had this rhetoric before, but in light of all these other things, I feel somewhat guilty and like I can't celebrate the 4th of July because, you know, there are still people who it's not the land of the free for everybody. There are buildings, the Supreme Court courthouse says, one nation and justice for all. It's not that way. There's not justice for everybody. There's still some things that we need to do. And, one of the things that President Biden said at this ceremony on Friday for the new citizens, he said, um, every generation aspires to attain, like it's a goal or an ideal. All men and women are created equal, and justice for all, the land of the free. These statements, it's an aspiration that we constantly try to achieve that we have not achieved yet. He acknowledged, we're not there yet. We still have a lot of work to do. And I guess that I can kind of accept. That I can kind of accept. It's just very hard when I hear, you know, proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I'm like going, but that's not true, you know. And as this relates to the channel and me personally, you know, um, I can't. I live in Indiana. Tennessee is just a hop, skip, and a jump away, about 90 minutes. I kind of wanted to take my daughter on a trip to Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, and I can't because I don't feel safe in Tennessee. If I go to Tennessee, I have to use a special bathroom that basically says transgender, you know, and I'm kind of afraid of some creep or some religious lunatic or somebody, lying in wait for me to come in there and kill me just because I'm transgender, or the fact that I have to use that specific bathroom basically outs me as being trans, and that's nobody's business in my book, you know. So, much like the old pictures you see in the history books, if you're so lucky to have a good history book of, the colored bathrooms, separate but equal, you know, um, we look back on that today and we say how barbaric to expect African Americans to use a different bathroom than uh, Caucasian white Americans. But the same damn thing is happening right fucking now, you know? And I guess part of me is kind of upset, why aren't there marches? Why aren't we marching on Washington? Why aren't we marching on Tennessee? You know, um, why aren't we, in every city across the country? Why aren't there people across the street from Chick-fil-A holding up signs? Hatred served here. Is that chicken good enough to hate gay people? Why? It's like there's a sense of complacency, and I'm not trying to incite people to violence. I mean, there can be peaceful protests, much like you saw with Dr. Martin Luther King and some of the peaceful protests we saw last year here in Louisville with the Breonna Taylor um, and other places over George Floyd. You know, that same discrimination is rampant. Look at the number of states who have passed, I believe there's 18 states that have passed anti trans legislation this year, or at least have it on the docket this past year. Um, within 1 month of President Biden taking over and saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we all treated each other with respect? 4 states passed anti trans legislation. So, again, where's the marches? Where's the protests? Nobody gives a shit. And I guess that kind of bothers me. So, yeah, I don't want to go rah, 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 USA, we're the greatest nation in the world because I'm being discriminated against, you know, and we need that Equality Act passed, and it's just not, it's dead in the Senate. It's been dead in the Senate for a couple of years, and until those senators get voted out, there's no legislation. The executive branch enforces the laws. So you've got to have those laws. The legislative branch has got to pass those laws so they can be enforced, right? And the Supreme Court can interpret them. But, I don't see that happening. Now, it might happen in the future. And, maybe because of these recent developments, it opens the door for future change. And maybe that change is coming. And you know, unfortunately, it might take a very public loss of life, like a suicide or something, to bring that to light. You know, where were we before George Floyd's death? All of this systemic racism was just accepted. It took such a cataclysmic event to kind of wake people up. Does that mean that we're going to have the same thing? Um, you know, there's probably already 20 some odd, and I apologize for not knowing the number, but there's probably already 20, 30, 40 trans women of color that have been killed this year. And where's the protests? We have the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and that's it, you know? But maybe that'll change. Maybe that'll change. Um, so, yeah, so it is hard. Like I said, it's hard for me to celebrate in light of what's come to our common consciousness with the African American communities being systemic racism and stuff that is going on that now is going to be, I guess, hopefully ever increasingly more visible until we can change it and do something about it. Um, but where's our revolution? You know, luckily we have, um, you know, a few transgender folks in Congress. We have the first transgender cabinet member. Things are definitely changing, and the first gay cabinet member too, Pete Buttigieg, right? Secretary of Transportation. So things are changing, and I firmly believe they will continue to change. All I have to do is think about my daughter in the other room. They're playing Minecraft. Um, her generation and probably a couple before hers are by far more, and this is another thing President Biden said at one point, you know, the youth and the inheritors, who's coming next, are by far more open-minded and to a certain degree more caring and more aware of LGBTQ stuff. And so, eventually unfortunately, through just attrition, I mean, I'm not saying violence, I'm just saying old age here, okay? When the old heart kicks out naturally, okay? Um, that's what it's going to take to get these 50 senators out. But I kind of wonder again, where's, will we see, and of course you could say, well, Robin, here's your chance to organize, to stop talking about it and do something about it. Maybe that's the next step. But my senator in my state in Indiana is Todd Young, and I've written him, you know, please pass the Equality Act. Please pass the Equality Act. He's a Republican. He doesn't give a shit. Uh, all of my state senators are Republicans. Governor's Republican. They all have this mentality party line because of the way the GOP has been for several years, catering to kind of outdated, for lack of a better word, religious right principles. And, again, it's just going to take attrition, unfortunately. How long do people live now? You know, 80, 90, 100 years. It may be another 100 years. Like I said, just through natural attrition, these old fucks in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, they're just going to have to die of natural causes. God forbid they figure out how to keep them alive, Walt Disney style, freeze them. But, um, again, it's just going to take time. But I just kind of wonder again, and definitely within my ability to organize something in my state when it's election time, to go up into Indianapolis and stand outside and with a sign, Todd Young hates gay people. Todd Young does not support the Equality Act. If I won the lottery and I had a bunch of money at my disposal, I would probably do billboards, across the state and flood the media with, those ads, I guess, that, paid for by the committee to remove Todd Young from office, you know, and put the letter that he wrote back to me right there where he flat out says, I don't support the Equality Act, you know. So anyway, kind of a long-winded, I do apologize, but again, I just needed to share. I feel, like I said, just some trepidation, and I think some of it is PTSD. You know, luckily, currently President Trump is not the president, and the guy up there tonight at the 4th of July ceremony in Washington, President Biden, is a supporter of trans rights. is a supporter of trans youth, is a supporter, okay, nominated people to his cabinet that are gay, lesbian, non-binary, transgender. So it is hurrah, you know, um, and maybe with something to say. Uh, we celebrate today, but we know tomorrow we have work to do. Tonight, we launch the firework and say ooh ah, and tomorrow we're going to roll up our sleeves and get into this. Maybe that's to come. Definitely. And as time goes on, like I said, it's just going to take time. You know, the problem was not necessarily President Trump, although he's no winner as a person. But there was just such an environment of hatred and xenophobia that unfortunately the GOP has just adopted. You know, they're the old crowd. They're the conservatives. From just a you know the old ways, conservative, as opposed to liberal, the new ways. Um, even though on a global scale, Democrats are not liberals. Not on a global scale. There is no alt left. Okay, what they say the alt left is more centrist, but anyway, let's not go into that. Um, anyway, so that's kind of my spiel for the day. And like I said, I've seen it in some of my friends' posts, and the feeling that I get. You know, I think part of what's going on nationwide is a bit of what they call wokeness. And the other day, someone had asked, 20 people what being woke was and what critical race theory was. And it basically was whatever that person feared the most about being open minded. No two answers were the same. There's no correct answer, let me put it to you that way. With the history of critical race theory as it was developed and the curriculum as it was developed and published and whatnot, it just kind of has become the boogeyman, things that you fear. And as I think, what some folks again say being woke, once you wake up to it, you can't go back. It's like being pulled out of the matrix. You know, once you know what the matrix is, you're out of it, and you want to change things to make it a better world. Except for the one guy Cipher. He was like, I know this steak is fake, and it's just my brain, but ignorance is bliss. You know, feed me bullshit. Feed me bullshit. Um, So anyway, here's to the future. I hope this time next year we will have an Equality Act, or we will be closer to having an Equality Act. It may take another 2 years to just vote out the 50 people in the Senate that just seem to have our nuts in a vice grip, for lack of a better word. I mean, uh, they are against the Equality Act. They're against the Violence Against Women Act. They're against the Voters' Right Act. And as I've mentioned before, here just across the way in the state of Kentucky, um, they can't even pass an anti-lynching bill. It's still legal to lynch people in Kentucky. Did you know that? Yeah, you can lynch the colored per the Commonwealth rules because they can't get this anti-lynching bill passed. Okay, well, guess who's in the Kentucky Senate? Bunch of Republicans. Imagine that. So anyway, I'll shut up and just wanted to make a video. It kind of helps me. It's therapy, and I wish you the best of luck today. And if you are going to celebrate the 4th of July, I hope you can enjoy it. You know, uh, a lot of, I think, my PTSD and some of my Debbie Downers My Debbie Downerism is just a little bit of that wokeness. It's the death somewhat of the innocence and ignorance within me, much like when I was a child and I believed in Santa Claus and I got excited and I wrote my letter to Santa and everything. And you find out it's your parents. It kind of is a bit of a bummer. The Easter Bunny, the same way, kind of a bummer. And like I said, the 4th of July, like I said, yeah, it's like, um, I love my country. Well, I, I, I like my country and I want to love it, but I want to see some changes made. You know, it's not this great juggernaut of wonderfulness anymore. I can see the man behind the curtain, for lack of a better term, and I can see the changes that need to be made. I can see the cracks. Uh, another another issue is infrastructure. That's something that's kind of and just this last week we had a condominium in Florida that collapsed, and no one has made a comparison between that and the infrastructure bill, which I'm a little bit curious about. Probably because you know, you don't want to give ammunition to the enemy, but here we have this building that's 40 years old that collapsed. You know, how many other buildings that are 40 years old are about to collapse? A study from the Department of Transportation, over half of the bridges in the United States are structurally unsound. Okay, I commute over two bridges every day. Uh, what are the chances that those bridges are structurally unsound or worse and are just going to crack and crumble? And there are things that need to be taken care of, and so um, we have things we need to fix, and maybe countrywide there's a bit of that wokeness that's going on and a little bit of that depression and not necessarily Debbie Downer, although it can kind of come across like that. It's like, yeah, my heart is not into the hurrah this year, as it once was when I was a little kid, and I enjoyed the sparklers and the Roman candles and bottle rockets. And my favorite when I was younger was the tank. Just little green tanks, and you would light the wick in the back, and it had two firecrackers with sparks in it, and it would generate just enough thrust to move the tank forward like 4 feet, and then out of the top turret, little pew pew would shoot out. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Little box. They were pretty cheap too. Um, I love those things, and foreshadowing for my love of 40K, I guess. But maybe we can recapture some of that. And I hope that uh, as soon as possible we get the Equality Act passed. And at that point, I think I'm going to celebrate the 4th of July a little more. When I know that I can go to a state and not be outed for being transgender. When I know that my brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community, not only can you get married to somebody in the morning and have your honeymoon at night, but right now you can be denied a hotel room, you can be denied treatment, you can be denied just because you're gay, just because somebody thinks you're different than they are. And then, kind of as a PS to that, what it's going to take for us to get there is to dispel the myth of religious preference. Um, Something that Todd Young had said to me in his letter, and some of the other things that I've seen on the news when they interview someone who says, well, what do you feel about the Equality Act? Well, my constituents believe their religious freedom is being impinged. And I want to say back to that, well, number one, specifically how, where, Here's my Bible. Can you tell me where Jesus said blah, 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 homosexuality? And of course, they can't because Jesus never said anything about homosexuality. Do a keyword search on your Bible in the Gospels. There won't be a hit. Okay. And we know that Leviticus was changed. Originally, it was talking about pedophilia. Men shall not lie with boys. It didn't say men shall not lie with other men. It said men shall not lie with boys because it was against pedophilia, not homosexuality. But uh, I want someone to say, well, that's good for you, but obviously it's not really impinging upon your beliefs to practice as you see fit. What you're asking is to discriminate against someone else, and that's wrong. And I also want someone to say, well, Senator, I can tell you my religious belief is to treat everyone the way I wish to be treated. So therefore, doesn't my religious beliefs have any weight in your world? And, you know, is the majority rule here? There's only so many Christians in this United States. There's Muslims and other people. So, are we majority rule? You know, it kind of takes the wind out of that argument. Um, so again, we need to. I think that's going to be the next big battle on the horizon is to just deflate the religious principle argument that somehow that religious view trumps everything else, for lack of a better word. And that's going to be the next big battle, and it's just going to take time. Just going to take time. Mm. All right. Speaking of time, I've run over, so till next time, good luck to you and thank you for tuning in. I wish you the best of luck again, as always, in your pursuit of being your authentic self as you define it. Till next time. Bye bye.